Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. There is a message that I want to share with you guys, and this message it reads like this. Hello, my brother. How are you? Can you please post my story as anonymous? I am a French-speaking man, and I have come here on your channel so that I can confess the sins that I have committed, even though I cannot give you my full name, and unfortunately I can't give you the name of the church in which I am currently pastoring. But in this church that I am currently pastoring, there are a lot of evil things that are done, and some of the things I hope that with time God is going to reveal everything that has been kept in the dark, because people they are being used. And our head pastor, what he does is that he has his own herbalist. In our country we have these priests, they are mainly voodoo priests. He is one whom he calls his own spiritual father. And when I started to know all of these things, I could not understand how can a Christian have someone who practices voodoo magic, and they then claim that that one is their spiritual father. And I want people to be very careful, because when you say that such and such a person is your spiritual father, and you do not even know whom they call their own father. Hence, the Bible said that call no man your father apart from your biological father, because you only have one father that is in heaven. And a lot of people in our church, they are encouraged to call our head pastor their father. I even call him my father, but it scares me a lot, because I know that he is a blind man that is leading other blind people, and we are all headed for the great fires that we are going to find in hell. For me, it might be a little bit too late, but I hope that with my confession, a soul is going to be saved. And if a soul is going to be saved, maybe with time, God's grace is going to fall upon my head. My story, it started when I was still in the village. When I was in the village, I was a young man that was in love. From primary school, I used to be in love with my neighbor's daughter. We went to the same school and we attended the same class, so it was a natural thing for us to fall in love. From primary school, that was when we graduated and we went to our secondary school. Whilst we were in high school, our love developed even further, because now we even understood what love was all about. I knew that this was going to be the woman that I was going to get married to. No boy ever tried to approach my girl, because everyone knew about this relationship. As well as for me, even though there were some girls in the village that were desperate, that would try and come and seduce me so that they can break up our love. But me and her, we were really strong. And when we were all matured, but when we were still in high school, she kept on asking for presents and gifts. Like when you are fully developed, then a woman who start requesting some things from you, since her friends were also getting love gifts from their partners. That was when I thought that it was far much better to find at least someone who could employ me part-time so that I can take care of my girlfriend. I then started working for this other man. This man, he had a tire repair by the side of the highway. I was working for him, and he was the man who ended up hurting me in the place where it pained me the most. Whenever my girl would come, she would just sit with me at that tire repair shop where I was working. But whenever she would have come to that place to visit me, I noticed that the man that I was working for, he would get angry at me for no reason at all. Sometimes he would say that I am like a fool that can't even learn the trade, and he would just belittle me so that my girlfriend can think that I am just useless. with time, I started to hear rumors that my girlfriend was seen whilst he was riding in my boss's car, and the way that she was sitting in the front seat, it meant that these two people were now lovers. I confronted her, and she said that this was nothing but a lie until one day I was going to school in the morning session and she was going to school in the afternoon session. Whilst I had gone in the morning session, after I had knocked off, I came back and I then picked her so that I can go with her so that she can be on the taxi. Since the place where we used to go to school, we needed to board a taxi. After she had gotten into the taxi, I then returned back home, and late in the evening, when school had knocked off, there was this other place where she used to get dropped by the taxi so that me and her we can walk and chat for a little while. I went there, my brother. I waited, I think until it was somewhere around 7 p.m. I really got worried, thinking that maybe she had been involved in a car accident. I then decided to go to that place where I used to work, and I saw her. She was sitting in my boss's car. I was really angry, and I asked her what she was doing there. She then told me that she didn't want to date me anymore because I was useless. I could not provide for any of her needs. Like she said, right now I want sanitary pads. Can you give me the money so that I can go and buy those sanitary pads? I just stood there confused because I didn't even know what a sanitary pad was. She said, you see, you are just useless. It is far much better that I date men that know how to take care of a woman. That is how my relationship with the love of my life ended. After she had dumped me in such a kind of a way, I really started to struggle in school. I could not concentrate anymore until I finally dropped out of school. When I dropped out of school, there was no way I could continue working for my boss who had stolen my girlfriend from me. So I started hustling in our small town, and there was nothing that was going there. So I then became addicted to drinking alcohol because alcohol was the only thing that could relieve the pain that I was feeling at that time. When she got married, I even attempted to commit suicide. So news spread around the village that I had tried to commit suicide. That was when I was taken by this other man. He was the elder of this other church. It was a new church that had just came to our area. So he took me and I started staying at the church premises, and they gave me a lot of counseling. After that, I then gave my life to Jesus Christ, and I started working in that church because they said that maybe the reason as to why he is thinking of committing suicide, it is because he can see that he does not have any work opportunity that is provided to him. He does not have any money. So I started working at that church whilst I was staying at the church prom as the I started staying at the church premises, and when they saw that I really had the zeal of reading the word of God in me, they then spoke with our pastor, who is the head pastor of our church, because our church, it is an international organization. So in our country we have what we call the head pastor. They told him about me. The pastor then requested that I should be transferred from our village and going to the branch where it is like the head office in the capital city of our country. When I went there, the pastor, he liked me a lot because I am quite a hard worker, and he said that he wanted me to work at his house like as his gardener, and I was going to get paid by the church. That is when I started working for the pastor at his house as his personal gardener, and I was also working as an usher. Usually what I will do is that when all the ushers had gone out of church, I would remain behind so that I can pray a little bit more. At that time, all that I wanted was for God to give me a woman that was not going to hurt me, a beautiful woman, so that by the time that I would return back to the village, I can show off, and everyone in the village will see that I have now gotten married to a very beautiful woman that was more beautiful than the girl that I had dated from a very young age. Whilst I would have remained behind, the pastor, he would come and he would go into his office. Sometimes I would hear strange sounds that would be coming out of his office. So I just thought that maybe when he would be locked up in his office, he will be praying for someone, giving deliverance to some of the church congregants, because there were animal sounds that used to come out of his office. So I just thought that he was having a spiritual battle with some demonic forces. As time went on, my brother, there was this other day, it was a Sunday, everyone had finished church and everyone had gotten into their cars and left. It was the security and a few people that were just remaining, and I was cleaning up the church because most of the ushers on that day, they said that they were too tired. So tomorrow, on that Monday, on the next Monday, we were supposed to meet up at church and clean up the church and pack the chairs. But I was really feeling down. I didn't want to go back to that place where I was staying at the pastor's house. I then decided that it was far much better for me to hang around whilst I was cleaning inside the church in that auditorium where the pastor used to preach. Whilst I was busy just sweeping around, that was when I saw the pastor. But the pastor, when he entered into the auditorium, but when the pastor entered into the auditorium, he did not see me, because there was this other passage that led to this other area, like if they were guest pastors that would have come to preach at our church. When it was time for them to go and eat their lunch, there was this other room that was always kept for the guests. So I was in that room. So when you are inside that guest room, the other people that will be inside the auditorium, they cannot see you, but those that will be sitting in the guest room, they can see everything that will be happening in the auditorium. They can see everything that will be happening in the auditorium. So when the pastor walked in, he did not see anything. He headed straight for his office. What surprised me is that the pastor, he was holding a black goat on his shoulders. This surprised me. I said, what is the pastor doing with a goat inside God's house? I decided to investigate. I then followed him. When I was about to get out of that room where the guests used to have their lunch, two more men, they walked into the auditorium. One of them was holding a big knife and the other one was holding an axe. I then thought that maybe they were going to make a sacrifice to God, but this was against the New Testament doctrine, because as Christians we are not allowed to make any sacrifices, because Jesus Christ was the final sacrifice. So I wanted to know what this pastor was up to. I followed them. I then saw that his office, it was opened. This was like the first time that I had ever seen the door to his office opened up. When I entered into the office, I then saw what they were doing. For the first time, I realized that there was an altar right there in the middle of his office. The way that they designed this altar, it was almost like the Ark of the Covenant. Such blasphemy, my brother. And they were busy slaughtering that god. And one of the men was holding this other big metallic dish. It was a gold plated big dish, and the blood was pouring into that metallic dish. So the way that I walked into his office, they all heard that there was someone who had entered into the office. The pastor got really angry at one of those men, and he screamed in French and he said that you are such a fool. Why didn't you close the door behind you? When those men were busy apologizing, I also tried to apologize. Then the pastor started to smile and to laugh, and he said, my child, come here. I want to teach you something about the Bible. He started to give me this nonsense doctrine, and as someone who had been studying the gospel of Jesus Christ, I had seen that. I noticed that all that he was telling me, it was just lies upon lies, because as Christians we know that physically we are not Jews, we are only Jews in the spirit. So he told me that once we have to sacrifice something to God as Jews, I accepted because I was afraid. I didn't want to lose my job because this was my only source of income. And my pastor, he was the only one who could offer me any kind of accommodation. So I accepted everything.